In 1841, two stagecoach drivers carried the northern mail through a cold stretch of English countryside. The road was quiet, but the land felt wrong. Dark farmhouses, scorched patches of earth, and a sharp burned scent drifting on the wind. The horses sensed it first. Then a pair of red eyes appeared on the road ahead. And from that moment on, nothing about their journey could be called ordinary again. So before we go deeper, do one thing for me. Make your room dark. Sit still. Don't move. This story hits differently when the shadows around you feel alive. And before I continue, tell me one thing in the comments. Are you watching alone, or is someone with you? And subscribe if you want more encounters that don't let you sleep afterwards. Thanks. Now let's keep going. I first heard the word Hellhound in the autumn of 1841, but at the time it was only another tale told over weak ale and cold stew. Coachmen repeat stories the way priests repeat prayers. Some do it from habit, most do it to calm their own nerves before the road. I had driven the Northern Mail line for 3 years by then, from York down through the Dales and over into the dark lanes that cut across the old estates. The road I knew best was the one through Blackthorn Vale, a stretch most drivers tried to swap if they could. I never did. I needed the money, and I had grown used to the long silences between the rise of one hill and the next. There were 4 of us on the coach the night it began. I held the reins. Beside me on the box sat Tom Barlow, older by 20 years and broad in the shoulders, with a red scarf around his neck and a worn cap pulled low over his brow. He had driven in every kind of weather and claimed he could smell a snowstorm a day before it came. Behind us, on the small iron step, rode Harris, the guard, with his brass horn and musket. Inside the coach, we had only 2 passengers, a linen merchant from Leeds and a young woman in a dark traveling cloak who said little and watched the world through the grimy window glass. The season had turned early that year. By the time we left the posting inn at Thistlebridge, the wind already cut through my coat, and the first thin frost lay along the edges of the troughs. Our horses stamped and tossed their heads as we harnessed them. For greys, strong and usually calm. That night they would not stand still. The ostler swore there was nothing wrong with them. Yet the animals rolled their eyes and drew back from the road as if something waited there. Their breath rose in pale clouds. The air held a faint stench, a bitter scent that did not come from horse, leather, or damp wood. Tom spat over the side of the yard and watched the eastern sky. "Too dark for this time," he muttered. "The moon's there somewhere, but the clouds have swallowed it." He glanced at me. "You sure about the Vale tonight, John? We could ask to swap for the western run." "We have the mail," I said. "They won't wait for a clear sky. The postmaster already complained about delays last week. We go or we look for new work." Harris checked the priming of his musket and gave a small shrug. "I have ridden this line for 10 years, he said. "Highwaymen are not so bold these days, and I have seen nothing worse than a lame horse in that valley." He paused, then added, "Still, the innkeeper was eager to see us off. Too eager. Did you notice?" I had. Old Carter had rushed our supper and kept glancing at the door whenever the wind pressed against it. When I settled the account, he leaned closer and told me that a flock had gone missing from the pasture near Blackthorn 3 nights in a row. "No tracks," he said. "No blood. The farmers found only black patches on the grass that crumbled at a touch." He lowered his voice when he spoke, and his eyes moved to the other men in the room, as if the story itself offended them. I had laughed it off, but the image stayed with me now as we rolled out of the yard. The first miles passed in the familiar rhythm of wheel and hoof. The road from Thistlebridge to the valley mouth ran between low stone walls slick with moss. Thin hedges rose behind them, stripped by the season. Lamps glowed in a few distant farmhouses, then vanished as we climbed. I kept my eyes on the pale line of the road where it cut through the dark. The sky held no stars, only a heavy lid of clouds. Tom sat hunched beside me, gloved hands tucked into his armpits for warmth, breath damp in the air. After a while, he broke the silence. "Carter's father swore he saw a black dog on that line when he was young," he said. "Not a normal dog. Said it walked with a weight that shook the ground. Said it watched the coach from the hill, and its eyes burned in the dark. He would not drive that way after nightfall. Would only take it at dawn, and then only with a full coach and 2 guards. Men remember things differently as they age," I said. "My grandfather saw signs in every change of weather. Every broken branch meant something." I tried to sound relaxed, but the memory of the horses stamping in the yard hung in my mind. Tom shook his head. "I have heard the same tale from others. They say it keeps to the older roads, the ones that followed before the turnpike stones, where the ground remembers other feet. He shifted on the seat. They call it a Hellhound now, but that name is new. The thing is older than that. The coach lurched as the wheels struck a rut. The merchant inside swore under his breath, and the young woman let out a soft exclamation. I called an apology through the small flap in the roof, then focused again on the road. The horses had set into a good pace, but their ears kept flicking forward, then back. Once the lead mare jerked her head hard to the side, as though something had brushed against her. I saw nothing beyond the circle of our lamps. The first odd thing we noticed came about an hour later. As we neared the top of the rise before Blackthorn Vale, a pale glow flickered along the roadside ahead. At first, I thought it was a lantern. The road curved, and for a moment, the light vanished behind the hedge, then came back again. It did not swing as a carried lantern would. It held steady low to the ground. The smell in the air changed. The earlier bitter note grew stronger, mixed with a hint of something burned. Harris rapped on the roof. "Do you smell that?" he called. "It is not wood smoke." "I smell it," I answered. My tongue felt dry. "We will see the cause soon enough." We crested the rise and the vale spread ahead of us, a dark hollow lined with bare trees and dull fields. The light that we had seen was not a lantern. A patch of earth lay beside the road, larger than a man's height, dull red at the edges and black in the center. It did not shine like an ember. It had no movement, yet it glowed faintly in the gloom, enough that I could see how the surrounding grass ended in a sharp line around it. The blades near the edge curled inward, dry and brittle. Tom swore under his breath. "That was not here 3 nights ago," he said. "I came through with Fuller on Tuesday. The field was normal then." I slowed the horses and steered the coach as far to the opposite side of the road as I dared. The animals snorted and tried to shy away, hooves clattering on the stones. As we passed, the smell grew intense, so harsh it brought water to my eyes. It was not the scent of a normal fire. It carried something sour, something that settled low in the throat. The young woman inside knocked on the roof. "Is something burning?" she called. "I can see a strange glow through the window." "Only a patch of ground, miss," Tom answered. "Nothing to concern you. Likely a farmer's rubbish fire burned low." His voice did not match his words. The strain in it would have been clear, even to someone who did not spend their life reading tones. Once we were past the patch, the horses eased slightly, but the air did not clear at once. The scent clung to us, then slowly thinned. I thought of Carter's missing sheep and the black patches he had described. I had imagined damp mold or disease. This was something else. I kept my hands tight on the reins, knuckles stiff inside my gloves. For a long stretch, none of us spoke. Only the rumble of wheels and the occasional rattle of harness filled the night. The road dipped into the vale. Trees rose close on either side, their branches meeting overhead in a kind of tunnel. The lamps threw short, thick beams that died a few yards ahead. Twice I thought I saw movement at the edge of that light, but each time it turned out to be only a branch shifting under the wind. "It is quieter than it should be," Harris said softly from behind us. "No owls, no foxes, even the sheep fields are silent." I listened and he was right. The usual small sounds of the countryside were gone. Only the wind moved through the trees, and even that seemed held back. The stillness pressed on my ears until my own breathing sounded too loud. A thin sweat began to form under my cap despite the cold. I told myself that I was being foolish, that the glow had some workman's cause, that the smell came from a chemical or a burning cart left to rot. Yet my thoughts kept circling back to the way the grass had ended in that sharp line and the manner in which the horses had tried to pull away. I had seen them balk at streams, scents, and shadows, but I had never felt their fear reach my hands like that. We passed a small milestone half buried at the edge of the ditch. The carved numbers were worn, but I knew them already. 2 more miles to Blackthorn Bridge, 1 mile beyond that to the fork where the road split between the main highway and the older track that curved along the hill. We always took the older track with the mail. It cut off time, and the main road sank into mud when it rained. I thought of that fork now and felt a faint pull in my chest, a tightness that had nothing to do with the cold. I cleared my throat. "When we reach the fork, we can stay on the main road," I said. "We would lose some minutes, but the ground should still hold the wheels. It has not rained for days." Tom turned his head slowly. The light from the nearest lamp showed the lines at the corners of his eyes. "You hate that road," he said. "You always complain about the ruts. What changed?" "You saw that patch," I answered. "And you know the horses felt it. I would rather fight mud than whatever made the grass end that way." Harris shifted behind us. The butt of his musket clicked softly against the iron rail. "I am not against a longer way," he said, "as long as we reach the next station with the bags intact. They care more about that than the exact hour." Before we could settle it, the roof flap lifted and the merchant's face appeared, pale and creased with annoyance. "What is this talk of changing the route?" he demanded. "I have business in Durham tomorrow. I paid for the fastest line. I will not crawl through half the county because you saw some strange soil." "The horses are unsettled, sir," I said, "and Blackthorn Hill has its own troubles. The old track is narrow. If there is something ahead that makes them panic, we have little room to manage them." He snorted. "You coachmen breed fear among yourselves. Every valley holds a phantom in your mind. I will not arrive late because of some superstition. Take the usual road. That is what I paid for." The young woman's head appeared beside him for a moment. Her eyes moved from my face to Tom's, then to the darkness behind us. "If the driver believes another road is safer," she said quietly, "I see no reason to argue. The difference of an hour will not ruin anyone." The merchant drew back as though she had touched a sore place. "You may waste your time if you wish," he said to her. "Mine is not so easily replaced." He dropped the flap without waiting for an answer. Harris gave a short, humorless laugh. "There you have it," he said. "Profit over peace." Tom stared ahead. "We are not lackeys to one man's impatience," he said. "You hold the reins, John. You will answer for the choice at the next station, not him. Decide what you can live with." The weight of that settled in my chest. I thought of the patch near the road, the smell, the silent fields. I also thought of the postmaster, his thin mouth, and the way he wrote to the company about any delay. I imagined myself turned off the line, searching for work on lesser routes. For a moment, my thoughts moved between those images. Then the decision formed, plain and solid. When we reached the fork, I said, "We will judge the main road with our own eyes. If it is firm, we take it. If it is already turning to mire, we keep the usual track. That is the best I can offer." Tom grunted. "Fair enough," he said, "though I will say this. I have never seen horses pull so against a stretch of road and then settle again. Whatever they felt back there, they have not forgotten it." We went on. The trees grew closer, the branches lower. A broken gate appeared on the right, its boards blackened, not by age or rot, but by something else. The wood had cracked and curled as if subjected to great heat, yet no ash lay on the ground beneath it. I could see where old paint had blistered. The hinge iron had a faint, dull sheen, as if it had cooled not long ago. "Look there," Tom said under his breath. "I see it," I replied. I did not slow. I did not want the horses lingering near it. Still, I could not stop my eyes from following the line of the broken gate into the field beyond. Near the center of that field lay a shape. The lamps only grazed it for a moment as we passed, but in that brief time, I noticed enough. The outline suggested a large animal, perhaps a cow or a bull. The body did not rise and fall. The surrounding ground appeared darker than the rest. I could not be sure, yet the sight joined the other details in my thoughts. The young woman's voice drifted from inside. "Did you see that?" Tom called back without turning. "Saw something in the field, miss. Best not to dwell on it. We will report it at the next station." She did not answer. For a few breaths, even the merchant kept quiet. We reached a stretch where the trees opened slightly. A low stone wall marked the edge of the road, beyond which the land rose in a slow slope. A short scrub covered it, dark and tangled. I kept my eyes mostly on the road, yet some impulse made me glance up the slope as we passed a gap in the wall. 2 points of red hung there in the dark, set at a height too low for a man and too high for a normal dog. They did not flicker. They did not move. They watched the road. My throat tightened. The horses felt it at once. All four jerked their heads and pulled against the harness. The lead mare tried to veer toward the left ditch. I hauled the reins and spoke to them, words of habit that had calmed them in storms and near carts. This time they responded more slowly. Their muscles trembled under the leather. Tom followed my gaze. His body went rigid beside me. For a moment we both stared at those red points. Then a cloud of darker shadow seemed to fold over them, swallowing them. There was nothing on the slope but scrub and stone. "Tell me you saw that," he whispered. "I saw it," I said. The words came out low and tight. My heart thumped in my chest hard enough that I could feel it in my neck. "Do not speak of it yet. Harris will have us all turning back." Harris, hearing his name, leaned forward. "What now?" he asked. "Another patch? Other?" "Nothing," I said quickly. "Only a trick of the light. Keep watch behind. I will manage the front." He He did not sound convinced, but he said no more. I focused on calming the horses. After a while, their gait steadied, though their ears stayed pricked forward. The reins still carried a faint tremor. My mind worked over what I had seen. 2 red points suspended in darkness. No outline around them. No lantern frame. No rider astride a horse. Only that fixed, steady gaze. I tried to shape it into some earthly cause. A reflection from a hidden window. A prank from some farm boy with a pair of glass beads. Each idea fell away as soon as I considered it. There had been a quality to that gaze, a directness that I felt in my chest as much as I saw with my eyes. We were close to the fork now. I recognized the tall elm on the right, stripped of most of its leaves, and the shallow dip in the road where water gathered in spring. The air cooled further as we descended the small slope. The lamps picked up the first glimmer of the main road running crosswise ahead. "Moment of truth," Tom murmured. The fork came into full view. The main road lay to the left, wider, its surface uneven, but not yet drowned in mud. The old track, the one that climbed toward Blackthorn Hill, forked to the right, narrower, bounded by tall hedges that formed a kind of corridor. A mile along that track stood the old boundary stone, and beyond that, a line of older markers that few could read now. The sight of that right-hand road brought a dull ache into my chest that I could not explain. I drew the horses to a slow trot, and then a walk as we approached the choice. My hands tightened on the reins. I could feel Tom's eyes on me, and I knew Harris watched through the rear. From inside the coach came the rustle of clothing as the passengers shifted. I steered the team toward the main road. The decision settled on me with a strange sense of relief and unease together. "We take the left," I said. "The ground looks firm enough. We gain distance from whatever is happening along the hill." Tom let out a slow breath. "I will not argue with that," he said. The merchant pushed up the flap again. His expression showed both satisfaction and irritation, as if he had expected a quarrel and now missed the chance. "About time," he said. "This is the proper way. No more talk of detours." The young woman watched me but said nothing. There was something steady in her gaze. For a second, our eyes met. I felt an odd sense that she understood more than she said. We turned onto the main road. The wheels hit a few shallow ruts, but the surface held. The land opened somewhat on this side. Low fields stretched away, broken by the occasional copse and a few clusters of stones. A long, low building stood in the distance to our right, roof sagging, windows dark, an abandoned barn most likely. It had always been there, but I had rarely given it a second thought. Tonight, it drew my attention. As we came nearer, I saw that the stones around it bore dark marks, not the stains of normal damp, but irregular shapes that spread from the base outward. The pattern reminded me of the patch we had passed earlier, though here the effect climbed the walls as well. The door hung crooked, the lower half blackened. No light, no sound, no sign of recent work. Harris took a long breath behind us. "I know that barn," he said quietly. "Old Rowley's place. He used to store hay there. His son drove for a while on the southern line. I have not seen Rowley at the inns this season." Tom watched the building as we rolled by. "If that is fire, it is a strange kind," he said. "The thatch should have gone first, yet the roof still holds." We left the barn behind. For a short time, the road ran straight and level. The horses settled into a steady pace, though they still snorted more often than usual. I tried to let the regular movement ease me, but the image of the red gaze on the slope and the blackened stones near the barn would not leave my thoughts. Each new detail seemed to extend a line leading forward to something we had not yet seen. I thought of turning back then for the first clear time. The idea came in a brief, sharp form. Stop the coach, swing the team around, and return to Thistlebridge. Yet, in the same moment, I knew I would not do it. We were deep enough into the route that turning back would waste more time than going on. There was no guarantee that the way behind was safer than the way ahead. And there was the duty itself, the weight I had accepted each time I took the reins. I tightened my grip and kept us moving north. The next sign appeared without warning. We had just passed a cluster of leaning stones when the lead mare threw her head up so sharply that the reins burned against my palms. All 4 horses stopped at once. Their hooves dug into the road, and the coach jolted hard enough that the passengers cried out inside. The animals faced forward, but refused to take another step. Their bodies tensed under the harness, as if the air ahead pressed against them. Tom leaned slightly forward on the box, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" he asked, though the answer was already taking shape in his expression as he scanned the darkness ahead. I lifted the lantern from its hook and raised it high. The beam shone over the dirt road for only a few yards before it caught something lying across the track. At first, I thought it was another dead animal like the one in the field, but the shape was wrong. It was long and thin, thicker on one end, tapering off in a ragged line. The horses trembled, ears flat, nostrils wide. Harris jumped down before I could stop him. He stepped into the beam of the lamp, musket ready. "Stay seated," he said. "I'll see what it is." Tom hissed. "Don't go too far. Keep to the light." I held the lantern steady as Harris advanced. The smell reached us first. It was sharp and sour at the same time, the same scent that had stung our noses near the glowing patch, but stronger now. He crouched beside the object and ran his free hand over the air above it without touching. Then he stood, turned, and walked back toward the coach with tight steps. "It's a tree limb," he said when he reached us, "but not cut clean. It's burned along the edges. No flame would burn like that. The wood is dry, but not ash. It looks melted." Tom shook his head. "Melted wood? That makes no sense." Harris climbed back up to the rear step. "Sense or not, it is there. We need to move it. The horses won't go forward with it blocking the track." I handed the reins to Tom, jumped down with the lantern, and walked carefully toward the fallen limb. As I approached, I noticed the ground around it. The earth was dark, as if soaked, but when I touched it with the toe of my boot, it crackled like brittle leaves. The heat had reached the soil and hardened it into a thin crust. The limb itself was heavy when I gripped it, though it should not have been for something so dry. The surface was rough and uneven with small holes along its length. The wood felt cold, not warm. Tom joined me. Together, we dragged it to the side of the road. When it fell, it broke at the center with an odd, muffled snap, like a rotten beam crushed by weight. No spark, no smoke, just the lingering scent that clung to our clothes. We returned to the coach and climbed back into our seats. The horses needed coaxing, but they slowly stepped forward once the road was clear. I studied them, murmuring to them as we resumed our pace. The wheels rolled over the hardened patch with a faint crunch. The young woman's voice came from inside. "What caused that?" she asked. "Is it safe to continue?" I answered without opening the flap. "It was only a fallen branch, miss, burned somehow, but the road is clear now. We will keep a close watch." She grew quiet. The merchant remained silent as well. I wondered what each of them imagined as they sat in the dark coach with only muffled views of the road ahead. For several minutes, we heard only the hoofbeats. Then Tom leaned toward me. "These signs, they are not far apart anymore," he said. "It's like following a trail." "I know," I answered. "But a trail of what?" He did not reply. Harris shifted behind us, restless. "We are being followed," he said suddenly. Tom twisted. "What do you mean? You see something?" "No," Harris said. "That's the problem. I feel it. There should be something behind us by now. A rider, a cart, anything. This road is used by more than us." He paused. "But I keep looking back and there is nothing. No lantern, no voice, only the dark." I resisted the urge to look over my shoulder. It would have made it worse. The land rose gently for a time, then settled again into a shallow dip. As we descended, a faint wind stirred, cold enough to turn my fingers stiff around the reins. The lamps flickered. The horses slowed on their own, as if the cold pushed against their legs. The road curved left around a cluster of tall hedges. As we rounded that bend, the next sign appeared. A farmhouse stood a short distance from the road. It had not been fully abandoned the last time I passed, though it was old and in need of repairs. Tonight it stood silent, its windows dark. The side facing us was scorched, not burned by open flame, but marked by irregular streaks of black that reached upward from the base like old wounds. The front door hung by one hinge. Near the entrance lay a bucket, overturned, with a dark stain spread beneath it. I slowed the coach. The window shutters, loosened by time, creaked slightly in the wind. No movement inside, no animals, no smoke from the chimney. Tom stared. "I knew the Brearleys who lived here," he said. "They kept chickens. They stayed to themselves, but were decent enough. The house was plain but clean. This happened fast." Harris's voice came from behind us. "If you stop here, I will climb the roof rather than go inside," he said. "Keep moving." I reached for the reins, ready to urge the horses forward, when I noticed something I had missed at first. Behind the house, near the fenced area that once held chickens, the ground glowed faintly. A dull red rim, larger than the other patches we had seen. Around it, the fence posts leaned at strange angles, blackened and curled. A section of wire lay twisted. Tom whispered, "That one is fresh." The young woman inside knocked once on the roof. "Driver," she said, "are we stopping?" "No," I answered. "We continue." I guided the horses onward. They needed no encouragement this time. They seemed eager to leave that house behind. As we passed, I kept my eyes ahead, though a part of me expected a shape to appear in one of the windows. We reached a long stretch where no farms remained, only open land and scattered trees. The road narrowed again, branching around a fallen wall that had collapsed sometime in the past year. The stones lay tumbled in the grass. Beyond the wall rose a mound covered in thorn bushes, one of the older burial sites common in the area. I had passed it many times and never thought much of it. Tonight, something stood near it. A tall shape, dark against the ground, not entirely upright. Its outline was rough, as though covered in coarse fur. I slowed the coach. Tom cursed. Harris leaned forward, musket raised. But then a gust of wind pushed through the brush, and the shape broke apart. The lantern light caught it fully. It was only a tangle of branches caught on a jutting stone. Nothing alive. It had looked like something else only because our minds were ready for it. "You see how easy it is to imagine," Tom muttered, though he did not sound convinced. We kept going. Then the quiet broke. A sound rolled across the fields, low, heavy, drawn out. Not the call of any dog I had ever heard. It came from the north, off the road, near a cluster of bare trees. The horses stopped at once, even without my pull on the reins. Their breath came fast, visible in the cold air. Tom's hand reached for the brake lever. "What was that?" Harris answered in a harsh whisper. "That was no animal." I sat frozen for a moment. The sound continued, softer now, as if moving. It came again, closer, ending in a rasp that scraped against the quiet. Then the trees ahead shifted. A large shadow passed between them. Not the wind, not a trick of the lanterns. Something moved along the line of the hedges, heavy enough that the branches swayed. I pulled in a tight breath. "We turn back," I said. "Now." "No," the merchant shouted inside. "We go forward." Forward. But his voice meant nothing now. The shadow moved again, closer, unmistakable in size. "We turn back," I repeated. "Hold on." I began to pivot the horses. That was when the first pair of red eyes appeared on the road ahead. The eyes were fixed on us, set low to the ground, but far too wide apart for any common dog. They glowed with a steady brightness that did not flicker. The darkness around them felt dense, as if the air itself thickened to hold their shape. Every hair on my arms rose beneath my coat. The horses went rigid. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Tom breathed out in a thin, uneven gasp. "It's on the road," he said. "It's standing right on the road." I held the reins tight, unsure if moving would trigger it. My voice came out thin. "Harris, keep the musket ready, but don't fire yet." Harris didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his tone was stiff. "I can't see its body, only the eyes." The eyes moved, not quickly. They lifted slightly, then lowered as if the thing adjusted its stance. A faint shape emerged in the lantern glow, a heavy outline, broad at the shoulders, the head low, the fur darker than the night around it. Its size was unmistakable. No farm dog grew that large. The creature stood across the width of the road, as if claiming it. The merchant inside pounded the roof. "What is happening? Why have we stopped?" Before I could answer, the young woman spoke. "Something is in our path," she said. Her voice was steady. "If you value your life, do not shout again." The creature stepped forward, one heavy stride. The horses snapped. They reared against the harness and swung to the side, nearly tipping the coach. Tom grabbed the edge of the box to keep from being thrown. I hauled with all my strength on the reins, fighting to hold them steady. Harris steadied himself behind us, boots scraping on the iron step. The thing stopped again. Its breath came out in a slow, heavy sound. Not a growl, not a snarl. Something lower, as if the air vibrated through a wide chest. A faint scent rose from the ground beneath it, thin wisps drifting upward. I saw the earth at its feet darken in a widening circle. Tom whispered, "It burns where it stands." The creature lowered its head. The red eyes held us with a directness that felt physical, as if something reached across the space and pressed against my thoughts. I felt a pull toward it, an urge to keep staring, though every instinct told me to look away. "John," Harris said quietly, "if it charges, we shoot." "No," I said, "not unless we must. If we fire and miss, it will be on us before we can reload." "So, what do we do?" Tom asked, voice strained. "We can't sit here. If the horses bolt, the coach will flip." I forced my mind to steady. "We draw back slowly," I said. "No sudden movements. If it's claiming the road, maybe it only wants us out of its path." That thing doesn't want anything normal, Tom muttered. Still, he didn't argue. I tightened the reins and coaxed the horses backward. The team resisted at first, legs stiff, muscles shaking. Then they began to step back, inch by inch. The coach creaked with each retreating motion. The creature stood still. Its eyes followed the movement, but its body did not shift. Another step back. Another. When we had put several yards between us, the creature moved again. It stepped forward, not toward us, but toward the side of the road. Its body passed through the hedges with a sound like brittle branches breaking. The hedge parted, then sagged behind it. More scorched ground marked its path. "It's letting us go," Tom said. "Or circling us," Harris answered. We kept retreating until the horses reached the bend in the road. The creature disappeared into the trees. I heard the dull crack of wood snapping deeper inside the dark. "We're turning around," I said. "Hold on." The horses didn't need urging this time. The moment I pulled left, they swung hard, nearly lifting the rear wheel from the road. The merchant inside shouted in protest, then fell silent as the coach lurched. Tom braced himself and guided the lantern so it didn't slam into the wheels. We pivoted fully, facing the direction we came from. "Drive," Harris said, "before it returns." I snapped the reins. The team leapt forward, hooves pounding the road in a frantic rhythm. The coach rattled and swayed. Tom clung to the edge of the box. Behind us, Harris kept his musket ready, the barrel pointed backward into the dark. For several minutes, we drove with only the sound of the horses and the scraping of wheels. The wind rose again, carrying the faint scent of scorched earth. Then we heard it, a heavy thud somewhere behind us. Then another, not running, not sprinting, just moving. Each step deliberate, shaking the ground. The horses sensed it instantly. They ran harder, foam forming at their mouths, breaths ragged. "It's as follows," Tom said. Harris swore. "It stays on the main road," I said. "It's the straightest path back. If we reach open ground, we may outrun it." The road straightened as we left the bend behind. I dared one glance over my shoulder. For a moment, I saw nothing. Then, a shape appeared between the hedges, tall enough that its back rose above them. The red eyes gleamed again. The creature broke into a faster stride. I turned forward. "Hold tight." We raced down the road, past the scorched farmhouse, past the twisted fence, past the burned gate. Each landmark seemed sharper than before, as if the creature's presence made every detail stand out. The horses strained but held their pace. The coach rattled so hard I feared an axle would give. The steps behind us grew louder. Tom clutched the side of the box. "It's gaining. Not much, but enough." "Keep going," Harris shouted. The young woman pounded the roof. "Is it behind us?" she demanded. "Yes," Tom said. "Stay inside." The merchant's voice came next, sharp with panic. "Driver, don't let it reach us." I did not answer. I could not spare a breath. We reached the rise before the valley mouth. The horses surged up the slope, lungs heaving, their hooves cracked against the stones. The creature roared. It wasn't a howl. It wasn't anything I had heard from any living thing. It was deep, layered, and heavy enough to make the reins tremble in my hands. The noise filled the air, pressing into our ears and chest like weight. The horses screamed. The coach nearly lifted at the front as they pulled harder than I thought possible. Another roar, then a sharp tearing sound behind us, something crashing through the hedge. "Don't look," Tom shouted. I kept my eyes on the road. We crested the rise. Ahead lay the long straight stretch toward Thistlebridge. If we reached it, we would have the best chance of outrunning it. The creature hit the road behind us. I felt it through the wheels. The impact rattled the coach and sent a jolt up my arms. "It's on the road," Harris yelled. "It's right behind us." I snapped the reins again, urging the horses to their limits. The creature roared once more. Then I heard something new. Harris pulled back the musket lock. "Don't fire," I shouted. "I have to," he shouted back. "It's close enough to bite the wheels." "No." The musket fired. The sound blasted through the night, echoing across the fields. The horses bucked but ran on. I didn't dare look back yet. I waited for the roar, the impact, the sound of claws on wood. But the night went still. Only the wheels, the hooves, and the hard breaths of the team filled the air. Then Harris spoke, his voice shaking. "Driver, it stopped." Tom twisted, wide-eyed. "What do you mean stopped?" "It's not following," Harris said. "It's standing in the road, not moving." I risked a look. The creature stood far behind us now, just visible in the lantern's diminishing glow. Its eyes burned through the dark. Its body was still. The road beneath it glowed in a circle. It watched us. Nothing more. We keep going, I said. Don't look back again. We fled toward Thistlebridge. We were less than a mile from the outer farms of Thistlebridge when the horses began to falter. They had given everything they had on the run from the valley, and their strides were turning uneven. I tried not to push them, but each time I eased the reins, they slowed too much. Harris stayed rigid on the rear step, the musket empty, but gripped as if he could fire it again through will alone. Tom hung onto the box with one hand and held the lantern forward with the other, his breath sharp in the cold air. The lamps at the roadside finally came into view, small and weak, but a sign that the edge of the village wasn't far. I imagined the stable yards, the posting inn, the men who could help if the creature appeared again. The thought steadied me. Then the wind shifted. A familiar odor rolled over us. The same bitter, burned scent we had encountered near the scorched patches. It clung to the road and seeped through the air, growing stronger with each step. The horses sensed it before we did. Their heads jerked up, eyes wide. The lead mare slowed to a nervous trot, snorting clouds of white. The rhythm of the coach broke again. Tom held the lantern higher. "Not again," he muttered. We reached a small bridge just ahead, a stone crossing low and narrow, spanning a shallow brook. The lamps along its sides flickered as if the wind pressed against them. The horses balked near the entrance, hooves scraping the stones. "What now?" Harris demanded. I leaned forward to steady the team. "They won't cross." Tom pointed to the left side of the bridge. "There. Look." I turned the lantern. A section of the stone railing had collapsed. At first, it looked like simple erosion or damage from a fallen cart, but then the light caught the marks. The stones bore the same dark scorch as the farmhouse. The soil near the brook was hardened, cracked, and steaming faintly. Thin wisps rose from it. Not smoke from heat, but something else, thin thread-like vapors that moved straight up into the dark as if pulled by an unseen force. The scent intensified. I swallowed. "It passed this way." Tom nodded. "Not long ago." The horses shuffled anxiously. The mare closest to the bridge refused to move forward, her muscles trembling under the harness. The other three pressed sideways, trying to pull away from the gap in the railing. "We need to cross," Harris said. "There's no other way into Thistlebridge without adding hours." Before I could answer, another sound cut the air. A faint scrape, not from behind us. Ahead, the sound came from under the bridge. The horses reared so violently that the coach jerked forward and slammed back. Tom nearly lost the lantern. Harris steadied himself against the iron rail. Something moved in the shadows beneath the bridge. Slow, deliberate movement against stone. The scrape came again, louder, followed by a low, heavy breath. My heart thudded against my ribs. The creature had not been behind us. It had circled ahead. The young woman knocked twice on the roof, her voice tight. "What do you see?" I didn't answer. My throat had gone dry. The merchant said nothing at all, as if he recognized the danger for the first time. Tom whispered, "It's underneath." The horses refused to go forward, but also refused to turn. They pressed against each other, nearly crushing the pole between them. I tried to calm them, but my voice shook. "Easy, easy." The scraping turned to a thud, a deep sound, something hitting stone from below. It was moving upward. Harris lifted the musket. It had no powder left. "If it comes up here, we have nothing," he said. The creature struck the underside of the bridge again. The entire structure trembled. Dust fell from the joints in the stone. The horses screamed and kicked out, one of them nearly slipping on the road. Tom grabbed my arm. "Back the coach. Quick." I jerked the reins and pulled hard. The horses responded at last, stepping backward in uneven, panicked motions. As we retreated several yards, another impact shook the bridge. One stone near the gap cracked clean down the middle. The space beneath the bridge filled with a low rumble. Not a growl, something heavier, something that seemed to come from deeper in the chest of whatever waited there. Then the eyes appeared. Not ahead of us, not behind us. Directly under the bridge, between the broken stones, the unmistakable red glow flared to life. The eyes rose higher as the thing lifted its head. Its bulk scraped against the stonework, and for the first time, I saw more than an outline. Its fur was dark, coarse, clinging to its frame in thick clumps. Its head was broad, its snout long, its teeth exposed in a silent, grinding motion. Steam rose from its body where it touched the stone, leaving fresh scorch marks. Tom spoke barely above a whisper. It waited for us. I felt my stomach twist. The creature had not been chasing us. It has driven us here. "We need to run the coach around it," Harris said. "Break through the brush." "That brush hides a ditch," I said. "We'd overturn." Then what? He barked. We stay here and wait for it to climb out? Even as he said it, the creature's claws scraped at the stone ledge, gaining purchase. Its head rose higher through the broken railing. The air around us tightened. The horses reared again. One nearly toppled backward. Tom gripped the lantern with both hands. John, listen. If the creature is climbing, the bridge won't hold. The stones are already cracking. He was right. The bridge shook under the weight beneath it. If it collapsed while we were on it, we would all be thrown into the ravine. I made the only choice left. We drive across, I said. Now. Tom stared at me. The horses won't go. They will if we force them, I said. And if we don't, that thing will reach the road. I snapped the reins hard. The horses balked, but then lurched forward as I drove them toward the bridge. Their bodies shook with fear, but instinct pushed them into motion. I yelled again, louder, and they surged ahead. The creature roared from below, a deep grinding bellow that shook the bridge so hard I felt it through the coach seat. Its claws scraped stone as it tried to pull itself up. The glow from its eyes brightened through the gap. Go! Harris shouted. The horses thundered onto the bridge. The wheels clattered across the stones, each rotation echoing against the hollow below. The bridge vibrated under the weight. Tom kept the lantern aimed downward at the gap. The creature's head reached the top of the railing. Its teeth snapped, its breath steamed. The stones beneath it cracked again. The horses lunged forward in a final, desperate burst, clearing the bridge's midpoint. The coach jolted violently as the rear wheel struck a loose stone. Harris nearly fell, but caught the rail with both hands. We reached the far side. The moment the wheels touched solid ground, the bridge gave a violent shudder. A deep crack echoed behind us. I didn't slow until we were several lengths away. Tom twisted around. The bridge. Look. I risked a glance. The creature stood atop the crumbling railing, its claws sinking into the stone. The bridge sagged beneath its massive weight. Then the central support broke. The entire middle section folded inward with a huge roar of collapsing stone. The Hellhound fell with it. Dust rose in a heavy wave. Chunks of stone tumbled into the ravine. But even as the debris settled, the glow of red eyes persisted through the dust. It was still alive. It was already climbing. Keep driving, Tom said. Do not stop until we see the lights of the inn. I didn't look back again. We fled toward Thistlebridge, the horses running as if the creature still breathed on the back of their necks. The first lantern of Thistlebridge came into view across the dark fields. The faint yellow glow hung from a post outside the outer smithy, barely more than a pinprick at this distance, but the sight of it steadied me. I held the reins tight, coaxing what strength the horses had left. Their strides had grown uneven, their breaths harsh, but they kept running. Tom leaned forward, as if his weight alone could push us faster. Harris stayed rigid on the rear step, eyes fixed on the road behind us. We passed the old stone markers near the edge of the village. A few houses sat scattered along the slope, windows dark at this hour, chimneys still. The narrow lane ahead would lead us into the main square where the inn and stable stood. If we made it that far, we could at least seek shelter behind solid walls. A faint clatter reached us from behind. Not from the ravine, not from the bridge, from the road. Tom stiffened. Tell me that's a falling stone. It's footsteps, Harris said. His voice had lost all force. It's climbing the road. I tried not to look back, but instinct won. Through the dark, I saw a shape far behind us, moving up the slope. Not running, not sprinting, just walking. Each step measured, each step heavy. The red eyes glowed through the dark, unwavering. The dust of the collapsed bridge still clung to its fur, drifting off its body in thin trails. The creature moved without strain, as if the fall had been nothing. The horses sensed it before the rest of us. They surged forward, nearly lifting the coach with them. The wheels clattered wildly. Tom held the lantern upright with both hands. We're close, he said. Just hold them steady. We entered the first cluster of houses. The narrow road between them amplified every sound. The horses' breaths echoed against the stone walls. The creature's distant steps thudded faintly behind us. A door creaked open. A man leaned out, holding a candle. His eyes widened when he saw the speed of our coach. He shouted something, probably a warning or a question, but the wind drowned it out. Another window opened. A woman leaned out, clutching a shawl, startled by the noise. The village was waking to the sound of our flight. We reached the main square. The posting inn stood ahead, its lanterns lit for the late arrivals. A few stable boys sat near the posts, half asleep. They stood abruptly when they saw us barreling in. Clear the yard, I shouted. They scattered. The moment we rolled into the square, I pulled hard on the reins. The horses skidded, hooves scraping stone, and the coach lurched sideways before coming to a jarring stop. Tom dropped down from the box at once, and the lantern raised. Harris jumped off the rear step and turned toward the road, musket useless but held like a spear. The merchant inside shoved open the door and stumbled out, face flushed, breathing hard. The young woman followed, calm despite the panic around her. She stepped aside, cloak brushing the ground, and looked toward the road with sharp, cautious eyes. "Inside," I said to them. "Both of you. Now." The merchant ran for the inn. The young woman hesitated a moment, then moved with measured steps toward the door. Tom's voice cut through the square. There. The creature entered the village. Its outline filled the narrow lane between the first houses, head lowered, shoulders wide, legs thick as timber posts. It walked with steady steps, steam rising from its fur. The ground beneath its paws blackened in fresh patches, glowing faintly before darkening again. Every house it passed fell silent. The entire village seemed to hold its breath. The creature stopped at the edge of the square. The red eyes stared directly at us. Harris lifted the musket as if it still carried powder. "Back inside the coach," he shouted. "Get to shelter." Tom grabbed my arm. "John, if it charges." "It won't," I said, though I didn't know why I believed it. The creature took one step forward. The scorch mark beneath its paws spread outward. A faint crackling sound reached us. The air grew hotter, sharp enough to sting the nose. Villagers pressed against their windows, terrified. Stable boys hid behind the posts. The inn door swung open as the merchant and young woman watched from within. The creature exhaled once. The sound rumbled through the square. Then it stopped. Its eyes shifted, not toward us, but toward the road behind us. The northern road, the route that led deeper into the county, away from the village. It turned slowly, without rush or hesitation. It walked past the well, past the edge of the square, past the outer barns. Each step left a patch of scorched ground, but it never changed pace. It passed the last row of houses and continued into the fields beyond, heading north. We watched until the red glow of its eyes disappeared behind the hedgerow. Only when it was fully gone did anyone breathe again. Harris sagged to one knee. Tom lowered the lantern. I felt the reins slip slightly in my hand, my fingers numb with cold and strain. The villagers emerged slowly. Men with lanterns, women clutching coats, stable boys wide-eyed and trembling. They gathered around us in a loose circle, whispering questions none of us could answer. Someone asked what it was. Another asked where it went. A third wanted to know if it would return. I didn't speak until the crowd quieted. "It won't return tonight," I said. It was moving north. The postmaster elbowed his way through the villagers, red-faced, shouting, demanding to know why we had come in at such a speed and why the horses were foaming. Tom told him to hold his tongue until morning. No one argued. The merchant stumbled from the doorway of the inn and looked at me as if I had dragged him through hell. The young woman stepped out after him and met my eyes. She nodded once, not in gratitude, not in fear, but in recognition, as though she had expected something like this her whole life. The horses were led to the stables. Their legs shook, but they were alive. We entered the inn together, Harris limping slightly, Tom with one hand still gripping the lantern as if afraid to let it go. The villagers followed, filling the room with low voices. Within minutes, the tale had already begun to change in their mouths, growing longer, darker, more embellished. I let them talk. I had no interest in shaping their stories. When the innkeeper asked me what I thought the creature was, I answered simply. "I don't know," I said, "but it burns the earth and it was here." That night, I didn't sleep. Neither did Tom. Harris dozed against the wall for a few minutes at a time, but woke at every sound. The young woman stayed near the fire, eyes fixed on the door. The merchant locked himself in his room and refused to come out for breakfast. By dawn, the scorched path through the village was all anyone spoke of. Word spread fast. Men from nearby farms came to see it. Some called it a sign. Some called it a curse. Some said we imagined it all. But the earth held the truth. By afternoon, riders were dispatched to nearby towns to warn them. Others followed the scorched trail north. They did not go far. The trail ended abruptly in a patch of dried, blackened soil. No tracks continued beyond it. No scent, no marks on the trees. The creature had vanished. If you ever pass through Thistle Bridge, you will still hear it told. How in 1841, the first Hellhound walked into the village and left its mark on the coach road. Some men question it, others swear by it, but the earth keeps the record. and those who drove that night never questioned what we saw.